Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of our podcast series. Today, we're diving into a topic that's often misunderstood: the relationship between Islam and science. We'll be debunking myths, exploring historical contributions, and discussing the modern-day intersection of faith and scientific inquiry. This subject is crucial because misconceptions about Islam and science can perpetuate stereotypes and hinder mutual understanding. So let's set the record straight. We'll delve into the historical contributions of Islamic scholars to various scientific fields, discuss the Quranic perspective on science, and tackle some common myths and misconceptions. Alright, folks, let's hop into our time machines and travel back to a period that's often overlooked when we talk about the history of science, the Islamic Golden Age. Now, you might be wondering, what's so golden about it? Well, let me tell you, this was a time when Islamic scholars were the torchbearers of knowledge, preserving ancient texts and making groundbreaking contributions to various scientific fields. Imagine a place where scholars from all walks of life, Muslims, Christians, Jews, Zoroastrians, came together to translate, study, and expand upon the works of ancient scholars. That place was the House of Wisdom in Baghdad. Founded in the 8th century, this academic institution was a melting pot of ideas and the epicenter of intellectual activity. Let's talk about a name you've probably heard in your high school math class, but might not know much about. Al-Khwarizmi. This guy is often called the father of algebra, and for a good reason. His book, Al-Kitab al-Muqtasah fi Hisab al-Jabr wal Muqabala, laid the foundations for algebra as we know it today. And guess what? The word algebra itself comes from the Arabic word al-Jabr, which means reunion of broken pots. Moving on to another luminary, no pun intended, Ibn al-Haytham. This man revolutionized the field of optics. He was the first to explain that we see objects when light rays hit our eyes, debunking previous theories that suggested we emit rays from our eyes to see objects. His work, Book of Optics, remained a standard text in both the Muslim world and Europe for centuries. And we can't talk about the Islamic Golden Age without mentioning Ibn Sina, also known as Avicenna in the West. This polymath wrote the Canon of Medicine, a medical encyclopedia that served as the standard medical textbook in both the Islamic world and Europe for several centuries. It covered everything from pharmacology to surgery. So, as we wrap up this first part, let's dispel the myth that science and Islam are incompatible. The Islamic Golden Age was a testament to the quest for knowledge, irrespective of religious or cultural background. And the contributions of these scholars are still felt in our lives today, whether you're solving algebraic equations or putting on your eyeglasses. Alright, folks, let's switch gears a bit. We've talked about the historical contributions, but what does the Quran itself say about science? You might be surprised to learn that the Quran, the holy book of Islam, has numerous verses that encourage the pursuit of knowledge and the study of the natural world. So let's delve into that. First off, the Quran is filled with references to the natural world. We're talking about verses that describe the mountains as pegs, the expansion of the universe, and even the water cycle. Now, these aren't scientific treatises, but they do show an appreciation for the natural world and encourage Muslims to explore it. One of the Arabic terms that frequently appear in the Quran is tafakkur, which translates to deep thinking or contemplation. The Quran encourages its readers to ponder the mysteries of the cosmos, the alternation of day and night, and the intricacies of the human body. This is seen as a form of worship, a way to get closer to God by understanding His creations. Many Islamic scholars, including those we discussed in the first part, drew inspiration from the Quran for their scientific endeavors. Al-Biruni, a polymath of the Islamic Golden Age, once said that the pursuit of science is a way to get closer to God. He believed that understanding the natural world was a form of divine worship, a sentiment echoed by many other scholars. Now, there's a common misconception that faith and science are like oil and water, they don't mix. But in the Islamic tradition, that's far from the truth. Many Muslim scholars see no conflict between their faith and scientific exploration. In fact, they view scientific inquiry as a way to deepen their understanding of God's creation. So, as we wrap up this segment, let's shatter another myth, the idea that Islam and science are at odds. The Quran itself serves as a catalyst for scientific inquiry, urging its followers to explore and understand the world around them. And as we've seen, this has led to some groundbreaking contributions to science throughout history. Okay, folks, now that we've laid down some historical context and explored the Quranic perspective, it's time to bust some myths. You know, those pesky misconceptions that seem to stick around no matter how much evidence you throw at them. So let's get myth busting. First up, the big one. Islam opposes scientific inquiry. Now, if you've been listening so far, you'll know that's far from the truth. But let's dig deeper. This myth often stems from misunderstandings or misinterpretations of Islamic teachings. In reality, Islamic history is filled with scholars who were pioneers in their fields, from astronomy to medicine. Let's talk about ijtihad, a principle in Islamic jurisprudence that encourages independent reasoning. This principle has been used by scholars to reconcile faith with scientific discoveries. It's a tool for interpretation and understanding, not a barrier to scientific inquiry. Next, let's tackle the myth that Muslim women are discouraged from entering scientific fields. This couldn't be further from the truth. Did you know that the world's first university, the University of Al-Qarawiyyin in Morocco, was founded by a Muslim woman named Fatima Al-Fihri? And today, we have countless Muslim women excelling in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. Let's spotlight some modern-day Muslim women in science. Take Dr. Hayat Sindhi, for example, a leading biotechnologist from Saudi Arabia, or Dr. Nergis Mawalwala, a Pakistani-American astrophysicist who made significant contributions to the discovery of gravitational waves. These women are not just breaking barriers, they're smashing them. As we wrap up this part, let's remember that myths are often born out of ignorance or misunderstanding. The best way to combat these myths is through education and open dialogue. And hopefully, this segment has given you the tools to debunk some of these myths and engage in more informed discussions. All right, folks, we've journeyed through history, dissected Quranic perspectives, and busted some myths. Now, let's bring it back to the present day. What are Muslims contributing to science now, and what challenges are they facing? Let's dive in. First off, let's acknowledge that Muslims continue to make significant contributions to science. From biochemistry to computer science, Muslim scientists are at the forefront of their fields. But you might not hear about them as often, and that's part of the problem we're going to discuss. One of the biggest challenges Muslim scientists face today is representation. Whether it's in academia or the media, Muslim scientists often find themselves underrepresented or stereotyped. This not only affects their careers, but also impacts how young Muslims view science as a career option. Let's talk about institutions for a moment. Universities, research centers, and scientific journals play a crucial role in shaping the scientific landscape. While many of these institutions are becoming more inclusive, there's still work to be done to ensure that Muslim scientists have equal opportunities for research and advancement. To give you a sense of the breadth of contributions, let's look at some case studies. Dr. Ahmed Zewail, an Egyptian American, won the Nobel Prize in Chemistry for his work on femtochemistry. Then there's Dr. Tebelo Nyokong, a chemist from Lesotho, who's making strides in photodynamic therapy for cancer treatment. As we wrap up this segment, let's recognize that while challenges exist, they're not insurmountable. The contributions of Muslim scientists to the modern world are significant and growing. And as we strive for a more inclusive scientific community, it's crucial to acknowledge and celebrate these contributions. Okay, folks, we've come a long way in this podcast. We've explored the past, present, and now it's time to look to the future. How can we bridge the gap between Islam and science? And what steps can we take to foster a more harmonious relationship? Let's get into it. First and foremost, education is key. We need to ensure that Islamic studies and scientific education go hand in hand. This will not only help to dispel myths, but also inspire a new generation of Muslim scientists. Imagine a world where Islamic schools are also powerhouses of scientific research. It's possible, folks. Next, let's talk about dialogue, both interfaith and interdisciplinary. We need platforms where religious scholars and scientists can come together to discuss, debate, and collaborate. This kind of dialogue can lead to groundbreaking discoveries and foster a culture of mutual respect. Media plays a huge role in shaping public perception. We need more responsible reporting that highlights the contributions of Muslim scientists without stereotyping or sensationalism. And hey, maybe a few more movies and TV shows featuring Muslim scientists wouldn't hurt either. Last but not least, we need policy changes. Governments and educational institutions need to create environments that are conducive to scientific research and exploration for everyone, regardless of their religious background. As we conclude this final segment, let's remember that the future is not set in stone. It's shaped by the actions we take today. So whether you're a scientist, a student, or just someone interested in the topic, you have a role to play in bridging the gap between Islam and science. Wow, what a journey we've been on, folks. From the historical contributions of Muslim scientists to the Quranic perspective, from debunking myths to discussing modern challenges and looking toward the future. We've covered a lot of ground, and I hope you found it as enlightening as I have. One of the key takeaways from this podcast should be the importance of open dialogue. Misconceptions and stereotypes often arise from ignorance or a lack of understanding. The more we talk, the more we learn, and the closer we get to breaking down the barriers that separate us. Remember, each one of us has a role to play in this narrative. Whether you're a Muslim looking to go into the sciences, a journalist covering the topic, or just someone who's interested, your actions and your voice matter. Don't underestimate the power of individual action. If you're interested in diving deeper into any of the topics we've covered, I'll be providing a list of resources, books, and academic journals in the show notes. Knowledge is power, and the more we know, the better equipped we are to make positive changes. So, what can you do? Start by sharing this podcast. Discuss it with your friends and family. If you're an educator, consider incorporating some of these topics into your curriculum. If you're a student, don't shy away from asking the tough questions in class. Let's keep this conversation going. And with that, we come to the end of our podcast. Thank you for joining me on this enlightening journey. Until next time, keep questioning, keep learning, and let's work together to bridge the gap between Islam and science.